Yeah, no one rushes us out here. We take our time. We assess every tree over 100 centimeters. If it takes us 10, 15, 20 minutes, we'll stand there and talk about it for 10 or 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, just the pride, I guess, as Haida citizens sure shows that when we find CMTs, we don't turn a blind eye, or even just one little leaf of fairy slipper. We don't turn blind eyes ever.
Definition of monumental, 100 centimeter DBH with at least 1/3 clear face. So you gotta look at all 3 faces, 1/3 of each of these trees. Is there 7 meters there? And is it clear? So you look up there, there's nothing really over 8 centimeters. So to me, that's a clear face.
Yeah, so yeah, we're looking for clear faces, and clear faces can't consist of knots or seams, and twist, sweep, top. So we're evaluating the whole tree quite extensively. So to do our buffers on every single feature, we come out and physically do them. And we use this tool here. This is what's called a string box.
This is a cultural cedar stand that we're buffering off of, so we're going to be pulling 60 meters. And at the end, we'll hang a white banner with all the information, 60 meter HD buffer from said monumental, whatever number this is. And then you put your back bearing from your compass. Right now I'm going to run 20 degrees and I'll just write my back bearing to the tree. I'm going for 20 degrees, okay, for 60.
So I'm running mine at 50-degree bearing. This is at 20, so we should land roughly 40-50 meters apart from each other, and then it gives us a good buffer. So this is 60 meters from the tree that I just pulled from. You usually put a boot mark in, so if any other engineer comes out or anybody's doing an audit on you, they know exactly where your 60 ended up. It's always good to show your work. And just like we wanted, you could see, guys, white banner over there. So our 30-degree difference works out pretty well. After we hang a banner like this, we write all the information on there, like you said. I think we got about 300 of these pulls in here to do. Minimal. Yeah. Our old supervisor there, the one that first taught us, he always used to tell us it's like doing a puzzle. You just gotta figure it out and put all the pieces together. Yeah, it's one big puzzle, he said. That's why you see the blue dots everywhere. Is from our extensive surveying. You look around, you're usually able to see a blue dot everywhere you are. So it's good, good practice, just so we know we didn't really miss anything.
"51% of Haida Gwaii is protected through parks, through heritage sites, and the protected areas like the ones behind me. An additional 32% of Haida Gwaii is protected within the timber harvest land base in areas such as cedar stewardship areas, forest reserves, goshawk reserves, and saw-whet owl reserves. That leaves roughly about 14% of Haida Gwaii for harvesting, and even within that 14%, we still find reserves when we get to the ground, and that puts more and more area into protection on Haida Gwaii. So in addition to the higher level protection that's on Haida Gwaii, like the heritage sites and forest reserves, cedar stewardship areas, when we get to a cup-block level, we have cultural feature identification surveyors that come out and spend a significant amount of time in an area identifying forest features significant to the Haida Nation, as well as heritage features, wildlife features, etc. In this case, they found Devil's Club. This Devil's Club requires a 2 tree length reserve all the way around it, and that's the reserve that we're in right now. So we're just outside the cup block boundaries by approximately 120 meters. This is the Devil's Club Reserve. So in addition to the cedar stewardship areas for cultural wood and for future and present generations of Haida for cultural use, each cup block that has cedar in it has 15% of the cedar reserved, and we're in one of those reserves outside of one of our development areas right now. Within the Cultural Wood Access Program, typically what happens is we're identifying monumentals like the one behind me through the program, and that's what's in inventory. We also have monumentals that are harvested within the harvest area, and they're provided to the Cultural Wood Access Program too. And typically this is what people are seeing for cultural wood, but there's also a lot more cedar that's out here that's available for cultural wood, including the yellow cedar that's beside me. Maybe there's a boat project or something like that that Haida is working on. There's yellow cedar, and there's smaller red cedar as well for decking or for other cultural purposes or siding for your home. It's available here, and it's really important through the Cultural Wood Access Program that we know that that type of wood is required. So when we're in these areas and we have the machinery and we have the fallers and we have the trucking, we can access this wood for Haida people. And that's been some disconnect over the last little while, that we were not aware that this wood is required for the nation. And with knowledge and communication, we can start providing this wood to the communities.
You're in that nice environment of cedar within the cedar stewardship area, and then you come in here and immediately you've got Labrador tea now. You have all of these grasses, mosses on the floor, and then you're seeing that uptick in salal as well. And when we're looking at the canopy, we just went from that 30 meters or so and that nice growing capacity on that site to, like really shrubby area. But if you were to put a shovel into this and do a soil profile, you can even see here, it's very wet. So there's a lot of water coming down through the forest into this area, and it's holding it all. And then further out, here's a little lake. There's trout present in there. It's called Drains Lake. So you do have fish streams coming from Jungle Creek that connect to this area. So that actually defaults everything to fish if it were to be flooded. So that's a primary concern for us, to make sure we're applying the proper buffers in the event that were to happen. This is a woodland bog that we're in. And again, visually appealing. If I was hunting or fishing, I'd still want access to something like this. So good to see it maintained on the land base for people's use. I grew up in Ontario, and Southern Ontario is largely in a transition stage itself. So that Greater Toronto area is expanding a lot. So you have more and more development now, and you're losing the forest that was there. So you come to an area like Haida Gwaii and see the sweeping protection that something like the land use order provides, especially when it's partnered up with provincial legislation. Although you're still harvesting and have opportunities for forest companies, it's much more centered on ensuring that cultural practices endure and that wildlife and ecosystems like this are preserved through time. So it's unlike anywhere else in the world in that sense, in my opinion, for the practices that we enforce here, and a great place to live and raise family because of that.
So there's typically just a bunch of categories of CMTs. There's felled trees, bark strip trees, test trees, canoes.
Yeah, the tool that was used to chop into this is about 11 centimeters wide. We usually measure the tool marks or how big they are. It usually tells you what kind of tool they used. And this one, more than likely an axe. Such a big tool was used.
And some of the locations that we find them at are quite surprising as well. You'd find them at the very top of a mountain, maybe 2 kilometers up from the sea. And when you find them there, you're just kind of astonished, like, wow, how are they all the way up here?
We've seen ones that are more than halfway cut through and still standing. It will go over eventually. It rots faster now that it's introduced the water to the inside there.
So this is a yew tree. The wood is very, very hard. are very hard-wooded. They grow very slowly. So this thing here is probably very old. And that's the kind of the leaves that it has. Very fine. Kind of looks like a hemlock. So slash spruce, yeah. So it took a little while to get trained our eye on to this stuff, but.
So this is our fairy slipper.
It's an old traditional plant that the Haidas used to use as medicine or a source of food. All of the plants that we were looking for in the survey, they used for medicine or food. And these are part of the class 1 features. So every little leaf like this gets an automatic buffer.
Here's the leaves that we look for. Those are around usually all year round.
And they're usually darker green than this, and they kind of look like a reptilian almost, like a little bumpy.
It's been pretty dry, so it's to be expected.
2 months out of the year, it's actually an orchid flower. So it's a big purple flower which stands out on the green floor. But we find the leaf all year round, and it's kind of just comes with experience, I'd say. Because we would look for the yellow cedar and tway blade.
And single delights usually go with the tway blades, gives it away that it's probably going to be very slippery around.
Yeah, so the forest kind of tells us when to look down and start looking for these things.
So it gets a 1 to 2 hectare buffer around it, depending on the size of the average tree height that we're buffering off of. And we don't just walk by stuff like that, because some guys, you know, I want a log here, they'll pick it. Not us. And find it, GPS it, put it in our books, and away we go. Protect it. You weren't really sure, and you wanted to be gentle, you can dig around it, and if there's a little bulb there, that'd be a fairy slipper.
So we're in a new development area of ours down just south of Sandspit near Grey Bay. We're in the First Nation woodland license, and this is a reserve that was established in the new area for a bear den, which is located to my right, and then for a monumental cedar, which is behind me. The monumental behind me is greater than 120 centimeters in diameter. And so we put a tree length and a half reserve around both of these trees. And you can see this area is really thick. There's several other monumentals and cedar trees that are in reserve here, and hemlock, and very, very thick with salal. And yeah, so it was kind of like weaving in and out of these reserves with the road and taking small patches for harvest for the development area. There's a requirement in the land use order to plant cedar if cedar was harvested. At Taan Forest, we're also trying to find areas where cedar was in the first growth. So we're in a second growth stand right now. It was harvested about 6-7 years ago. And what we found was it was a straight spruce stand. So under legal order, we didn't have to plant cedar because it was only spruce and hemlock that we were harvesting. But what we found, like behind me, this very large cedar stump, we found that cedar was here initially. And so it's our objective as well to find these older areas when we harvest them, that we're harvest them the second time if they're straight spruce hemlock and there's cedar in there from the first time that was harvested, we're replanting cedar. And this is an example of a planted cedar, and it's doing very, very well in these stands. We're in the Skidegate area right now, and we're looking at some karst features, some limestone features that were discovered during some development. Now we're in a second growth stand right now, and this area was logged. It was logged right up to and probably through this feature. And you can see the old trees and stuff that have come down around me. So this buffer on this area would get 2 tree lengths buffer. This was actually part of an entire line of features along the way through the stream. So we're in an area now, this is limestone. The stream does go through here, and we can see how the cavern carries on through there. And what we're looking for when we come down here, we're looking for 2 things. One, we're looking for all of the vegetation. This is a very rich area. So we've got everything from sword fern, lady fern, maidenhair fern, snake liverwort, lomeflower, lots of rich species indicators here. But we're also looking for indication, and we'll bring in our cultural feature identification surveyors as well as archaeologists. We're looking to see if there's any heritage features that could be found in here as well. So these ones do get the 2 tree length reserve and remain out of harvesting indefinitely.